Welcome to the New York Times podcast. You ate it for lunch of music, news, and criticism. I'm your host, John Caramonica.
Stop playing with them, Riot. You thought I was feeling you? No. That munch. Either he ate it for lunch. My body, I get what I want. Like, you thought I was feeling you? No, I was feeling you. That munch. Either he ate it for lunch. My body, I get what I want. Like,
it's Ice Spice. It's Munch. Feeling You. It is the one song that appears on the year-end song lists of all three of us critics here at the New York Times. John Pareles is here.
I'm here.
JP, you thought I was feeling you? You're right. I am. I am feeling you. It's accurate. It's actually true. Ice Spice had that wrong. Lindsay Zoladz is here. LZ, what's good?
Not much.
We're going to get into our song lists. We're going to get into some of the deeper cuts. We're going to maybe poke at each other's lists and learn about things that we don't know about. Also, just two quick points before we get into it. One, the mailbag episode, year-end mailbag's coming up. We're already getting a bunch of questions. Popcast@nytimes.com. I know I said I would make a Facebook thread. Hopefully by the time this comes out, there will be that, as well as Discord. Also, t-shirts, dwindling supply of Popcast t-shirts. Get yours before the full dwindle. It's thepopcast.myshopify.com. Profits to the New York Times and the East Cases Fund. Thank you to everybody who's already gotten one. And thank you for posting the pictures on IG, which I get a real kick out of. And I'm happy to repost. Ice Spice should have a Popcast t-shirt, to be honest. Ice Spice is rocking OG BFFs. I do think Ice Spice should have a Popcast t-shirt. Maybe I'll try to work on that next week. Munch is, to me, a fascinating song for a couple of reasons. It has a lot of the tension of a lot of New York drill, but one of the things about drill rappers in the city is I think there's a lot of like scabrousness in the vocal texture. There's a lot of anxiety, tension, raw edged delivery. It's fast, it's choppy, it's punchy. What I like about what Ice Spice does is push against that. There's something very patient, very calm, almost, dare I say, like cunning and sinister about the resistance against the beat, which also goes hand in hand with the resistance to the munch in question. It is both resisting the actual conventions of the genre and also resisting the object of the song. So there's a lot happening on this record, which is why I like it so much. LZ, where are you on this?
I love this song. There's something about the form and the content that really echo each other in this way that she just sounds so unbothered. And it is a song about unbotheredment.
Being unbothered, yeah.
Yeah, and not barely like even wanting to give someone this attention that she would be bestowing on them. So there's just, I think it's an awesome vocal delivery when she gets in that flow. Like you said, there's something almost like calming about it, but also she's being really savage and just totally dissing this person. It just feels like she's cutting you, and before you even realize she's cut you, you're bleeding, and you're just like, what? So, are you being the proverbial munch, but
yes,
not you. Not you.
Couldn't be me.
No,
like could not be me.
Couldn't be.
Couldn't be. JP, how does this rank in your mind in the great kiss-offs of pop? It does feel like the kiss-off of the year. What do you think about it in a bigger picture?
I actually found myself listening to a lot of breakup songs this year. The breakup energy seems to be creating a lot of good songs. I mean, Lindsay pointed out, it's like the cartoon where, the swordsman chops you up, but you haven't fallen over yet. Also, you pointed out when you first wrote about it that munch is a great syllable. Munch is just a great syllable.
Great slang.
And it feels good.
Great
it rhymes.
And again, I can't swear that it originates with this song. I assume it does not originate specifically with this song, but certainly in terms of popularization, I'll check the Google trends or whatever, but I'm sure it's like 100x over whatever it was the day before the song came out. Yeah, it's incredible slang, really good mouthfeel when you say it. It has like a little bit of like, as if.
And it could be a Wordle word too.
Wow.
To top it all off.
Has it been a Wordle word?
I don't know.
JP, the slang, that helps, right? Like it helps propel the song.
Yeah, absolutely. But the sheer nonchalance of her delivery, it's like she's wrapping it behind her back while she's doing something else. She's reading texts on her phone while she's like destroying this guy.
And also, like, that is, I mean, like, that's pretty true across most of Ice Spice's songs. Like, there is this calm, this patience. Like, even the record that's like the Zed beat, the Zed sample or whatever, there's little moments of spike in there, but not really. And I do think it's pretty interesting in a moment that feels a little bit kind of like a renaissance moment for female rappers. It's interesting to have maybe the most provocative talent be the least like rappy rap. Like it's a person who is like almost rejecting the idea of like, I'm going to show off to you. It doesn't have that. Like, I feel like you could say, you know, whether it's Megan or Saweetie or Lotto or whatever, like there's something a little bit showy. With Megan, it could be like formal structure things. With like Saweetie, it's presentational. With Lotto, it's also like rapping levels and subject matter. Ice Spice feels reluctant in a lot of different ways, and it's in many ways like the most entrancing of the bunch.
There's something very Zen master about it too, that it feels like she's holding back out of this sort of sage wisdom and not necessarily because she can't do the other thing that you're expecting of her. And I don't know what went down with her and Drake too, but that certainly adds some subtext both to the song itself. Like, I'm not saying the song is about Drake, although
no, I don't think it's about Drake.
It's long before they met up, but like Drake. The idea of her getting his cosign and then him taking it back, and there's this weird drama between them, or maybe not, but it's an interesting milestone in the Drake cosign of a new younger talent that she almost made him a munch in the metatextual way. So
do you think there's like an unreleased Drake remix of this record, like a kind of like flipped gender version of this that was never going to see the light of day?
I think that's kind of the $1 million question this year. Maybe someday we'll know the full story, but that adds to this feeling of sort of independence with her and the I don't really need you energy that this song has. And again, that's totally like extra textual information, but I think it adds to some of the mythos of the song and why it did feel kind of like one of the defining songs of a year where there weren't a lot of defining songs. And again, it's the one overlap on our list, which is interesting. So there had to be something to kind of elevate it.
And just for the record, there are a number of like gender flipped drill remixes of Munch. But I'd be very curious if in the Drake vaults, something's floating around. JP, I do think Lindsay's right. There's a lot less consensus this year. And it's strange because there's obviously like more songs than ever. And also like, I feel like I'm listening to less music than ever because it's just like at a certain point you like look out at the ocean and be like, I don't really want to swim today. Does that feel correct to you about the lack of consensus? And if so, what do you think is underneath that?
It's the sheer abundance creates a lack of consensus. You just can't keep up with everything. I also think that on the rare occasions I've listened to Top 40 radio this year, there was nothing I wanted to hear. A lot of it was because I'd heard it 3 months ago and it was like still getting repeated on Top 40. But part of it was that a lot of it seems gimmicky. A lot of it seems copying the past instead of building on it. So, I mean, I was looking elsewhere than Top of the Pops. Also, there's so much fragmentation. I mean, the streaming services have made it so your top list is not my top list. Your playlist weekly is not the one that I'm going to. So there's so many niches and so many just nooks and crannies to go into. Who needs a consensus in a way?
Well, let's talk about our number one songs, talking about lack of consensus, because there's not genre overlap, like tempo overlap. Like there's no, our three number ones couldn't be coming from more different places.
Even language overlap, I think.
Even language overlap, real talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously. Okay, Lindsay, let's start with you. So your number one song, Life on Earth, Hooray for the Riff Raff, Lynn Segarra. Let's listen to a little bit of this song.
Spirit blinded by despair. All but the lightning strike.
Talk a little bit about this song, but also this band.
I mean, it's sort of a one-person band. Linda Segarra's
Hence the invisible air quotes in the chat.
But this was, I guess, in looking at my list, a lot of the songs I chose, because this was a year that I felt like I was connecting more with albums. And I think a lot of the songs that I chose were sort of the standout song on an album for me. So I loved the Hooray for the Riff Raff album for the most part. It's called Life on Earth. This is the title track from it. It didn't entirely hang together for me as a record, but this song, every time I put it on, this was the one that like stopped me in my tracks and was like, this feels like a slowing down of time, like a really beautiful reflection. It's a way to write about climate change without it feeling gimmicky or corny or not working. It's really a gut punch to me. And the refrain that the song is centered around is life on earth is long, which is turning this cliche and this very human scaled cliche on its head that, you know, we think of life as short, but they're really looking at it through a more global lens and this idea of sort of geologic time and really zooming out in this way that is pretty profound for a 5-minute song. I find it's a song that really puts big things in perspective for me, but hits me in a really emotional way too. I'm not even sure if it was a single from the record. It certainly was not like a Billboard #1 this year, but it's just something that I came back to and that continued to resonate for me throughout this year and kind of capture a bigger feeling of just a more elegiac feeling that really just struck me this year.
JP, your #1 song, again, totally different. This Is Not America, Residente, featuring eBay. Let's listen to a little bit of This Is Not America.
Desde hace rato, cuando ustedes llegaron, ya estaban las huellas de nuestros zapatos. Se robaron hasta la comida de gato y todavía se están lamiendo el plato. Bien encabronados con estos ingratos. Hoy le doy duro a los tambores hasta que me acusen de maltrato. Si no entiendes el dato, pues te lo tiro en cumbia. Bossa nova, tango.
I want to underscore one thing. This is like a thing that I think, JP, you and I have in common, and maybe Lindsay did something different this year. We tend to put songs that were not on our albums on the songs list, which is tough because there's obviously a lot of great songs on the albums that we put on our albums list. So I have in different years done this different ways, but I think in recent years I have tended to move in the direction of songs that don't seem to have a home elsewhere, with the implication being that if it's on the albums list, if it's a song on an album on the albums list, it's probably pretty good, but different approaches. So Residente, Calle Trece, this is an artist that you have interviewed a bunch, that you have spent a lot of time thinking and writing about. Tell us about this song.
Well, Residente got into this beef with J Balvin that interested me not at all. And this is him doing what he does well.
Can't think of a less interesting person to quarrel with than J Balvin, just for the record.
But this is like Residente being like world historical, really angry, coming up with a great beat that feels really traditional. Ibeyi, who are Cubans living in Paris, have these very striking harmonies behind him. And he's just going at it saying, you know, American culture covers the Americas. Don't be provincial. This machete chops heads. It just kicks. Part of the reason I put it first, I look at the page and I see our Spotify playlists. And I think if people are going to be playing these songs as a playlist, they should move like a DJ set. So I'm not saying it's the best song of the year. I'm saying it's a great place to start this playlist, and it's a really good song. And it's a Lucy. There wasn't an album to go with it. It was just out there. I tend to put singles and, like Lindsay, the standout track of an okay album on this list. But also, I really just wanted to start with a bang.
So is the news on this podcast that this is not the best song of 2022? Is that, are we breaking news? Do you want me to not paint you into a corner on this?
You're painting me into a corner. I don't want to designate any song the best song of 2022. I haven't listened to every song.
That's true. As I said on Instagram the other day, lists are imperfect snapshots. I was regretting that I didn't put Blonde Shell's Sepsis on my songs list, which is a song I really, really liked this year, but kind of like for exactly this reason. It was like basically a Lucy, and like, you know, I never like kept track of it anywhere and only after the fact realized it. But yeah, lists are imperfect snapshots, and anybody who partakes in the act of criticism should know.
But I'm not saying it's not the best song either.
Damn. You're really trying to have it both ways,
You
JP.
bet I am.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm reluctant to allow you to have it both ways, but it's okay. I'm gonna in this moment.
Well, John,
rather than
what
spend the next
is the best song of 2022 in the Caramanica universe?
I'm so glad you asked, because the best song of 2022 is actually two songs.
Talk about having it both ways.
Yeah, real spit. To anyone who's ever complained on Twitter or other social media sites about me adding multiple things to single entries, this year is for you. I'm here for you. The best song, asterisk, of 2022 in my world is two songs. It's Tomorrow 2 by Glorilla and Cardi B, and it's Shake It by K-Flock with Cardi B, Dougie B, and Bori 300. Let's listen to the Cardi verse on Tomorrow 2.
Riding with my twin and and we all look good as fuck. She said she my eye, but I don't know her. Had to look her up. I know that I'm rich, but I can help it. I'm hood as fuck. I've been on these necks so long, sometimes I fucking stuck. I can put you in my business. You might wish me dead tomorrow. Be on today, sing every word of up tomorrow. I still got cases open. Keep your mouth shut tomorrow. Play with me today, then get some sleep.
So really, the best song of 2022 is, in my mind, Cardi doing what Drake has always done, which is hop on younger artists' tracks that are stylistically different and demonstrating that she's adaptable to other styles other than her kind of like natural rapping style. And so to me, her verse on Tomorrow 2 is incredibly memorable. Condos in that head, just most of the things that she's saying, I'm not allowed to repeat on a New York Times platform. But an incredible verse, very dexterous, very imagistic, a tremendous amount of fun. I'm also coming off of the kind of Cardi versus Nicki, everybody feeling there's only room for one successful female rapper, which is like a long-standing, ongoing issue in the genre. It's just nice to have like a very, very clear statement of kind of, we can all get along, there's room for everybody. And frankly, we'll probably do even better if we do team up together. So that's why I like Tomorrow 2 so much. Shake It. Let's listen to a little bit of Shake It.
You on hot, I'm on hot too. I pull up to your window like drive through. Come get shot with bullets, no bridle. Put a tag in your head, I could buy you. Like, huh? Like what? None of these bitches is tough. I'm with this shit and it give me a rush. Shorty be looking, think she got a crush. I'm not a step up, I'ma stop out. All of my eyes get mixed with the robber. Bro, said she was gonna touch me. She lying, Kuna Matata. All the bros not up in
This is an interesting year for drill, in the sense that drill is trying a few different strategies to go, I don't want to say mainstream, but at least to kind of get a little bit of broader attention. And having Cardi, one of hip hop's biggest stars, come onto a drill track is a really useful tactic. But what's striking is she's doing it in a very traditional way. She's not coming on as a outsider imposing her natural style. Instead, she's adapting to the rhythms and flows and patterns that everybody else in the track is rapping. And the fact that she can do that and do that so efficiently and convincingly is really impressive. And this was maybe not like a huge hit, strictly speaking, except on car speakers for a few weeks over the summer, but a really, really great song, great K-Flock song, really, really good Dougie B verse on this. Also just happy to see Cardi trying this as a way of kind of filling in the gaps between singles or albums and doing it so well. But again, here we are, 3 different critics, 3 radically different approaches to what the number one song is. Should we all briefly just run down our top 10, much like we did last week?
Yeah, that seems like a way.
Yeah, we'll just do it quickly. JP, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I started with Residente featuring Ibeyi, This Is Not America. The Smile Radiohead spinoff with The Opposite. Wilco from its Cruel Country album, the most psychedelic song on the album. Bird Without a Tail, Base of My Skull. Rema featuring Selena Gomez, Calm Down, which is Selena Gomez jumping onto an Afrobeats hit. Emiliana Torini and the Colorist Orchestra, Right Here, a little genial minimalism. Lucrecia Dalt with Atemporal, which is this lurching, clanking sort of Tom Waits does a bolero. Burna Boy's Last, which is a breakup song. Aldous Harding's Lawn, which is a breakup song. Madison Cunningham's Our Rebellion, which is a not breakup song, which is like we're opposites, but we get along. And she's a great guitarist. And Big Thief's Simulation Swarm, which is some giant allegory that is much smarter than I am.
Crazy that you picked a band I've never heard of for your number 10 song. That's incredible. Never heard of this band.
I've heard that about you. I was trolling you, John. Admit it.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling that there's some subtext to that choice, but that's okay.
No, but
that's okay.
I really like this song. This song does kind of reach out and grab you, and I don't know, it's like American Pie. You want to sit and figure it out.
Lindsay, you want to take us through your 10?
Sure.
And for the record, we all picked way more than 10, but we're being terse here.
Yeah. The other ones are just all of us trolling each other. That's what these lists are for.
Yeah, exactly. 11 through 25 are all,
yes.
all inside jokes. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. So you know my number one. My number two is the 1975's Happiness, which is like the best Fine Young Cannibals song I've ever heard. Like, it's just so late 80s. It's fantastic. I did have Alien Superstar at number 3 by Beyonce. It was very difficult to pick one song off of Renaissance because it almost felt sacrilegious to take one out of context, but this is the one for me. Amanda Shire's title track off her album Take It Like a Man, which is just this really wild, melodramatic, poetic torch song. That's number 4. I had a pretty obscure one that you may not have heard of at number 5, Taylor Swift's Anti-Hero.
I can't believe the drag of Look What You Made Me Do in this blurb, just for the record.
It's my blurb.
Listen, man. Listen, man.
I would like to get there because something that I noticed when I was looking at the Billboard charts of this year, which I think the stagnation of which is part of why our lists are so different, but this is the only Billboard number 1 that appeared on any of our lists. So I don't know what to make of that. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll bookmark that thought. But anyway, I look her up, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the list and we'll get back to it.
The list is weird. We should talk about that list. Anyway, back to my list. Rosalía, Despecha is number 6. The rare kind of Lucy that I picked up of Moto Mami was high on my albums list. She just had so many good ideas this year that she also had this song in the can. Pusha T, Diet Coke. It's kind of surprised not to see that one on some other lists, but you know.
We'll talk about it.
Well, we might. Chloe Moriando with the song Fruity, which I know you were a fan of that record, John, I believe.
Really good record. She's really good. Really talented.
Her sort of hyper pop turn, and I'm here for it. Yeah Yeah Yeahs featuring Perfume Genius, Spitting Off the Edge of the World. I'm liking this era of Yeah Yeah Yeahs. They're back. And then my girl Grace Ives.
J. Crew Passion Week party. Let's go. We're back.
Grace Ives, Lullaby at number 10. Speaking of my albums list.
All right, I will run through my list. So we had the 2 Cardi features at 1. We have Munch at number 2. Bailey Zimmerman, Rockin' a Hard Place. This is a major country record this year from a relatively young singer who has a pretty robust voice and still feels like he's figuring out kind of what the outer bounds of his voice are going to be. Really, really, I like this. Very serious, sober song. Number 4, Lil Yachty, Poland. Maybe not even a song at all. Tell me what you think in the comments. Number 5, Girls by The Dare. If you know, you know. Number 6, woo! What Are You Doing Now by Sadie Jean, the open verse mashup of all the duets that is on Sadie's YouTube channel, written by TikTok duets at the beginning of the year. This is the sort of logical endpoint of that movement. Number 7, Catch a Murder by Low Key. We talked about Low Key on the Atlanta episode a couple weeks ago. A really, really stressful and bleak record. Number 8, the Cameron freestyle on the Funk Flex freestyle series, freestyle 171. My ranch out in Idaho, I tell my neighbors, howdy. Number 9, Yaritza y su esencia, Soy el único. This is a great Spanish language Mexican folk song with a little bit of contemporary swagger from a very young singer with a family band. Very, very interesting voice. Really, really cool record. And number 10, another TikTok smanger. It's Complex Demo from Katie Gregson McLeod, which started as a snippet. And then this is the finished piano version of the snippet. And if you were sad on TikTok sometime in the fall, you definitely know this song. Maybe let's talk briefly about TikTok, because I think maybe that will tie in, Lindsay, to what you just mentioned about the Billboard chart, the Billboard number ones. You know, I'm like a big fan of the detritus of TikTok, and I've basically given up trying to absorb new music in any other meaningful way, because it's just going to come down this path and be powerful regardless. These Hot 100 hits, at least a few of them have real TikTok backstories. And it's interesting, even 12 months ago, certainly 24 months ago, but even 12 months ago, the pipeline like wasn't as smooth. And I think by now the pipeline is just like incredibly smooth from it's happening on TikTok to it's a major, major, major hit.
Are you talking about Bad Habit? Another song on
Boy, am I. Okay, I promised somebody that I would say this, so I'm just going to say it. And I think the Steve Lacy song is bad. I think the album is not good. And a joke that I made in another context altogether that I don't know that I stand behind, but I did promise someone I would say it, is that the Steve Lacy records makes the Harry Styles record sound like a Radiohead record.
Wow. I'm glad you've gone public with that, finally.
Look, I want to like the Steve Lacy record. Just didn't do anything for me. It feels really undercooked. Does not feel formed lyrically or musically, and not in like the cool way. Like not in the like, ooh, you really undercook this.
Not in the Poland way.
No, definitely not in the Poland way. 100%. Yeah, I just couldn't get my head around it. The fact that this is a number one hit is very strange. It's 100% TikTok driven. And there is that famous video at a concert this year of all the kids in the audience singing the TikTok part of this song and then completely dropping off and not knowing any of the other words. And like on the one hand, LOL. On the other hand, that's got to be so devastating for an artist who like puts together a body of work and then is just like, oh, you really only like 18 seconds of one song that I did. It's got to suck. Where are y'all at on Steve Lacy? You want to drag me about Steve Lacy?
I don't hate the song.
Did anybody have the Steve Lacy album on their albums list?
No.
No, none of us did.
I can't get with the full album. I don't mind this song. When you're talking about like the big songs of the year and thinking about what to include on my list, it gets to a point where like, am I sick of it yet? And I'm sick of Bad Habit. I've reached my threshold where I don't want to hear it out in public anymore. I'm not sick of the Taylor song yet. Do with that what you will. But Bad Habit had its shelf life for me. It's expired.
All right. You know what? Enough of me complaining about this song. Let's listen to Bad Habit. Maybe you loved Bad Habit. Maybe you should send me an email at popcast@nytimes.com and tell me about loving Bad Habit, or perhaps loving the parts of Bad Habit that are not the 18 seconds that people like on TikTok. Anyway, here's some of Bad Habit. The catchy or the non-catchy part is TBD. That's in Pedro's hands. And we will be back right after this. Okay, now that we have picked ourselves off the floor, I am back. JP is back. LZ is back. Lindsay, you want to get into the conundrum of the Billboard number ones of this year?
Yeah.
Can I read the list really quickly?
It's a short list.
It is a short list. Okay, we'll skip, obviously, Mariah for the Christmas song, which is fine. Adele, Easy on Me. We don't talk about Bruno for about 5 weeks. Glass Animals, Heat Waves. Woof. Woof. Harry Styles, As It Was. Jack Harlow, First Class. More Harry, more Jack, more Harry. Jimmy Cooks, Drake and 21 Savage. Wait for You, Future with Drake and Thames. Lizzo, About Damn Time. Beyonce, Break My Soul. Nicki Minaj, Super Freaky Girl. More Harry. Steve Lacy. Sam Smith and Kim Petras, Unholy. Taylor Swift, Anti-Hero. To your point, Lindsay, only Taylor on any of our lists for songs.
It's strange because it's never been easier to game the charts and to game the top of the Billboard chart in particular. But there's also, JP was sort of speaking a little bit more earlier about this kind of paralysis of choice when there's so much else out there. And Harry Styles is number one for 2 different stretches of however many weeks it happened. It felt like this atop the albums charts too. There is a stagnation that it does feel like a lot of the biggest artists are just rising to the top and staying put there. I think Steve Lacy, perhaps the most interesting aspect of that song is how it's the exception to the rule, and it is the big TikTok hit of the year. But it also seems like, as you were saying, John, he has a very ambivalent at best relationship to having had the success through TikTok.
to song. I did not wake up today intending to choose this path on the show, but like we have arrived here.
We have.
JP, what do you make of these number one songs?
They're okay, I guess. They didn't do much for me. I mean, I think as it came out, I put it in the playlist that week. It came up for the album. It's fine. It's okay. I'm struck by how old fashioned most of these songs sound.
Yeah, at least 3 of them reliant upon heavy samples of old hits or heavy interpolations of old hits.
Where's the forward momentum? Are we really condemned to have our reflexes stimulated by stuff we already know?
Yes. The answer to that question is yes. Talking about the collapse in linear time that the internet affords, that has created a circumstance in which the new is fundamentally indistinguishable for the old. And if that's going to be the case, then why the hell do something new when you could just do something old?
To go off that too, I talk about trolling. I was toying with the idea for a moment of picking Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill as the best song of the year.
Yes.
So I think there's a case to be made. I'm not going to make it right now, but
I would have read that blurb. No, I think that's fair. Let's listen to Running Up the Hill from Kate Bush, which was used on Stranger Things, right?
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I enjoyed hearing the song everywhere.
Okay, so here's this Kate Bush. And now, unless I'm mistaken, like this song was basically getting played on like the Z100s of the world this year because of that.
I believe so. It was in the Billboard Top 5. It didn't hit number 1, so we didn't just mention it in this conversation, but it was hovering up there with Harry Styles and Bad Habit for the better part of the year.
What does that tell you about the very nature of newness right now? Like, obviously, we all, in our own ways, picked songs that felt new to us. But so much, as JP just pointed out, so much of that list of number one songs and even the kind of persistence of this Kate Bush record let me know that newness is not widely valued.
Well, we are jaded critics. We've heard it all. We want something else. It's all our fault. We're just impatient. Why aren't we, savoring the quality of that super freak riff again?
I'm talking about a song I got sick of this year. I mean, especially with the TikTok trend, like it was just, man, that was tough. It's hard to feel that way about Rick James, but I did arrive there this year.
It's not his fault. No,
of course not. No, of course not.
I do hear Running Up That Hill in Antihero, though. I think we talked about that on the Taylor podcast. I don't know that she or Jack Antonoff are directly engaging with that, but the tones of the synthesizers, obviously Kate Bush and Taylor Swift are very different lyricists and have really different lyrical cadences. But I think the reason Antihero is on my list and not another one of these sort of rehashings of the past that we're talking about is it does feel updated and fresh and like it's speaking to this particular experience of being Taylor Swift, a very particular experience in the world. But at the end of the day, I think it works. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't sort of a like comfort food element to the production and those sort of smeary synth washes that really do evoke something like Kate Bush for me. So as ever, like maybe Taylor's just savvier about that than some of the other suspects, but
She's
I don't
playing
know.
games that you can't even imagine she's playing games.
She's a mastermind.
But there's
Mhm.
also the geek factor. There's also the I love 80s synths geek factor in Jack Antonoff's production. You know he's got a room full of vintage keyboards. You know his computer has sample packs organized by year and waveform. I mean, I'm guessing here. I do not know this, but there is that, let's go back to that cool analog sound from that era. There's a lot of that going on. And I mean, if you do watch Stranger Things, it's all about 80s synth tones. The group that writes the music, Survive, is all about analog synthesizers and vintage equipment. So Kate Bush ties right into Taylor Swift because they're probably using the same equipment and or sample packs.
Yeah, Jack Antonoff do be smoking on that sample pack for sure, like unequivocally. Let's go deeper than 10. JP, do you want to pick a song from somewhere after, from 11 down on your list? A kind of like a left field song?
I'm
And we'll
going
talk
for
it
the
through?
one I can't pronounce.
Uh-oh.
This is a South African song. The DJ and producer Tyler ICU with two other producers, Kabza D. Small and DJ Mafarisa, backing the beautiful voice of Nkosazana Daughter in a song that translates as heart. And Amapiano is a pretty established genre. You got a shaker, you've got a low bass line, you've got a lot of spaciousness. And this 6-minute song with 3 producers, I have the feeling that they were all muting each other's tracks because there's just so much open space in this. And Nkosazana's daughter's voice is just gorgeous and plaintive and sad. If sad on TikTok were a little more international, this song would be there.
The song is called In Lazayo.
Yes. Good pronunciation, I think.
Let's get into it. In Lazayo, Tyler ICU +3. Lindsay, you want to give us a deep cut?
Yeah. Speaking of sad on TikTok, let's talk about Mitski,
Wow.
the patron saint of being sad on
Wow.
TikTok.
Seriously.
My favorite song from her album Laurel Hell this year was the single Stay Soft. I think it's probably one of the best pure pop songs she's ever written. That was a record that didn't quite make my top 20 or top 25, but I came back to this song a lot. And I think she's an interesting person to bring into this conversation of the TikTok success pipeline, because much like Steve Lacy, she has a lot of ambivalence or just mixed feelings about being a TikTok success. And I think part of this record perhaps not hitting as big as some people had expected it to has to do with her playing against type a little bit and saying, you want me to do these like sad emo songs. I'm going to make some bright, shiny pop songs. And I like this one because it feels like both of those impulses are present. And there's just like a really good, smart pop lyric to it. But it also is seeming to be about her struggle with being vulnerable versus letting her guard down in this industry that is really out to eat her in certain ways. So
In real terms. Yeah. Real terms. All right, let's listen. So this is Stay Soft from Mitski.
Just tell me what you want to do. Tell me what you want to burn away. 'Cause I could be your stove.
And Mitski, a really good example of an artist who like increasingly feels, this is, I don't mean to be ungenerous, but like at war with the fan base or at war with like the fan representation. This was also the year where like legacy artists being forced to be on TikTok became a thing. And obviously it was all contrived and fake and not nearly as stressful as it was being presented. But I always felt during that whole thing with like Halsey and Florence and everything that the real tension was like between Mitski and TikTok, even though Mitski is not on TikTok, but like TikTok is on Mitski. And I always felt like that was a much more authentic, artist v TikTok tension than any of the things that people were writing think pieces about like 5 months ago.
To be fair, though, I think she is an example because I went to the second date of her Laurel Hell tour in Raleigh, North Carolina. Shout out to everyone in Raleigh. Anyway, but everyone knew all the songs. Like, I think she's in some ways, even though there is something inherently mixed about having the success that she has, like, I think people do the deep dive with her once they get into Mitski. Like, her sort of big TikTok song, I guess, is Washing Machine Heart. And yeah, that's like one of everybody's favorites, but there wasn't that Steve Lacy 18-second snippet of the song being what everyone was singing along. Like, I think
she's a different kind of TikTok famous kind of.
Yeah.
It's like a mood.
Well, I also think she's at war with the mechanism of TikTok. She's at war with the atomization of the songs, and she's at war with being told to be one thing. She's not at war with her fan base. She's more at war with the metrics and the externals of the whole process. Mitski is one of those people that people know every lyric of every song. If you're a Mitski fan, you're not with her for the quick hit. You're with her for the whole up and down of the journey.
As has been said in other contexts on TikTok, it's not a phase, Mom. It's a lifestyle. I'll talk about a song that's just below. It's in my number 11 this year. It's Cookie by New Jeans. Let's listen to a little bit of Cookie.
내가 만든 cookie 너를 위해 구웠지 But you know that it ain't for free Yeah 내가 만든 cookie
So this year, I try to listen to as much K-pop as I can. Obviously, it is vast and sometimes tough to stay totally on top of. But I was struck this year by the contrast between Blackpink, who had been anointed in the last couple of years as the next big girl group, but which already appears to be kind of running out of steam and gas and maybe even desire to be as big as a group like Blackpink almost immediately becomes in this environment. Their album felt uninspired and a little bit listless to me, certainly as compared to the early singles. And there was a smallness in New Jeans. New Jeans is another girl group. This is from the first EP, maybe the first single or second single. There was a smallness and a particularity to this. It didn't have the scale of ambition of like world-beating ambition that I feel like almost like attuned to hearing or expecting from artists in this space. It felt really musically faithful. It was curious about R&B and pop. There's a Jersey club breakdown towards the end. It felt like a fun, playful record made by people who enjoy music, not a how do we solve 7 problems in the space of like 3 minutes and 15 seconds? How do we get everybody a singing moment and a rapping moment? And how do we import references from multiple American hits? And also, how do we fill an arena at the same time? There's something refreshingly small about this song, and I really enjoyed it. I do want to pick up on the Mitski conversation by talking about someone else who was on my list, and I think JP was on your album's list, and that's Ethel Cain. Let's listen to part of American Teenager.
My neighbor's brother came home in a box, but he wanted to go, so maybe it was his fault. Another red heart taken by the American dream. And I feel
So Ethel Cain is another fascinating case of someone resisting shortness, resisting brevity, big slowcore vibe, big Bazzy Star energy. And certainly when I saw Ethel live, one of the things that was really striking is it's an absorptive experience. We talked about this a little bit before. I almost feel like there's a Mitski reckoning coming for Ethel Cain at some point. It does feel like it's kind of on that track. And Lindsay, when you were just talking about the Mitski conundrum, it felt like Ethel might be at step 1 of like a thing that Mitski is like at step 7 of.
But, when Joe interviewed her, she was already thinking about this. She was already, saying they're going to expect this from me and I'm going to do something else. She seems very self-conscious about the career path that looms in front of her. Joe's story is great, by the way. Everybody should go back and read it.
Yep.
I mean, Mitski seems like she was putting herself out there, but surprised by the machine that greeted her. Ethel Cain seems like she's a little more prepared.
I think there's sort of a micro-generational difference too. I think Ethel Cain is only, I don't know how many years younger than Mitski, but there's almost an expectation of when you present yourself as this kind of even alt pop star that you're going to have to know how to deal with these things. And I find Ethel Cain really fun online. She's just like, I think she calls her fans daughters, I believe. So she is mother. And there was a time that Mitski was like more playful about that too. And I think she kind of burnt out on it. But at the very least, right now, Ethel Cain seems to be having fun with that and seems to be understanding that's part of the persona. But let's talk about the song, American Teenager.
So dry. I just felt thirsty. I just wanted like a big glass of water after listening to this song. You know, I just felt like I'd been like dropped in the middle of a desert somewhere. Really sonically powerful and ambitious with small scale, but like ambitious.
Very glossy too. Everything echoes and resonates. I got a big Cranberries vibe from this song. That sort of 90s, millions of layers of guitars and keyboards and everything polished with a plaintive voice in the middle.
What do you make of her songwriting, her lyrics?
I worry that she's going to fall into shtick, that she's going to fall into the Southern Gothic shtick a little too much. On the album, she pretty much handles it. She raises Jesus a lot. You know, she raises family, but she's young. And I think she's really amazing to do this on a debut album that you made in your bedroom.
To kind of go back to our 80s nostalgia conversation too, I think there's a way that this song is playing around with the sounds of like pop radio in the 80s or 90s or alt rock radio that you mentioned, JP, that feels very like winking. And she's kind of saying like, I know I'm not inventing this, but I'm maybe quoting it in a way that's so obvious that it's actually clever. Like there's literally like a Journey guitar solo dropped in the middle of this song that just sounds like a bar band playing Don't Stop Believin' or something. And there's something kind of glorious about just how obvious some of the sonic reference points are, but then she's using them to turn it into something new, but also universal in the scope of what she's singing about.
Well, speaking of nostalgia, how is this different from Harry Styles?
Interesting.
I don't know, JP. How is it different from Harry Styles?
Well, the Harry Styles album left me feeling hollow, left me feeling, wow, this is really accomplished. It means nothing to me.
Did you like it more or less than prior Harry Styles albums?
I was never that big a fan. So I'd say about equally.
Same. I like it more. It was on my long albums list. But what do you think? What is the difference between what Harry is doing and what Ethel's doing?
I think the difference is in the lyrics. Ethel Cain is forging a persona and going into the Southern Gothic culture, and Harry Styles seems to be putting together Mad Libs.
Lindsay, do you think that Harry Styles and Ethel Cain are doing the same thing?
That's a deep philosophical question.
That is a deep philosophical question. There's no good answer to this question.
There's not.
There's only bad answers.
I don't think they're doing the same thing, but I think Harry is sort of reaching for a safer and more like minimalist kind of nostalgia. This really was the biggest song of the year as it was. And I still am struggling a bit to fully understand that. And I think some of it just feels like it was by default. That the classic conversation that we've had over and over about Harry of like, is it the force of his personality or is it the music itself? And I tend to think it's the former, but this song was unavoidable this year. And I think in some ways it was the safer version of what Ethel Cain's doing, the less ambitious and less gloriously excessive version of a similar vein of nostalgia.
There are so many songs that we could have talked about and spent time on today, but I feel like we gave you a pretty good representative spread of where our heads were at in 2022. There will be more year-end content to come, but this concludes the list outside of jazz. This concludes the listy part of the content. Thank you, JP, and thank you, LZ, for coming through and chopping it up.
Here we are.
Listen to every podcast ever at nytimes.com/popcast. Email me, popcast@nytimes.com. Get in the Facebook group, get in the Discord, tinyurl.com/podcast Facebook/podcast Discord. Buy the t-shirt. It's thepopcast.myshopify.com. Subscribe anywhere you get your audio content. Apple, Google, Stitcher, maybe Yahoo. Who the hell knows? I don't know where podcasts go. Wherever they are, that's where we are. Our producer, as always, is Pedro Rosado from Headstepper Media. We will be back next week. And you know what? I am just going to do one of my songs to go out on. This is a very fun record, very bawdy, incredibly fun. This is Shibuya. It's Hit Kid featuring Aliza, Gloss Up, Slimeroni, and K Carbon. And if this doesn't put a smile on your face, nothing we do here today can help you. See you next week.
I go by